Café and Networking Podcast promotes successful business experts. I'm Tom Reaoch, known as the King of Networking, connecting people throughout the world from my podcast studio in Brazil. And today we talk with Katherine Lewis, and she's joining us from Denver, Colorado. Katherine Lewis is host of the Opportunity Made podcast. She's founder and executive director of the Leon Foundation of Excellence, a program that helps youth heal intergenerational patterns of trauma. So, Katherine, why does tech need the disability community?
Tom, thank you so much for having me today. I have had a very interesting journey through tech, and I've been able to work with a lot of people who have disabilities, focusing specifically on how do we build accessible tech. As a software engineer who was trained in this space, I didn't know about accessible engineering until I came to my current employer and realized that that was something that is crucial for the development of software. You know, there's 1.6 billion people approximately in the world who have some form of a visible or invisible disability.
1.6 billion.
Yes, it's huge. It's a huge amount. And so if we're building tech that's inaccessible, we are creating a world where 1.6 billion, more or less, people are unable to use products. You know, it depends on the disability itself and how the tech is inaccessible. But the point is we need to be building tech that works for everyone, whether you are neurodiverse, whether you have full capabilities, whatever it might be. We need to make sure that we are testing our engineering, our tech, so that way anyone can use it. Now, the important reason why we have to stay connected to the disability community is they are the users. We have to go back to our users and say, what is it that you need? How can we serve you? And by pulling them in and doing usability testing, getting their feedback, then we can ensure that we are building accessible tech, not just running with what we think we know. Because people's needs are always changing. Just as a good company would go to their customers, we have to go to the disability community and ask them for what they need.
Well, that really strikes me when you talk about 1.6 billion. It's almost a quarter. There's 8 billion people in the world. But I would imagine, and also here in Brazil, I've worked with persons who have disability. And really what we found, they need to be heavy users of tech because basically that's their only option of interaction with the world. Some of them can't see, some of them can't hear, some of them aren't mobile. They can't get around. The mobility issues are everywhere in the world. So really they have to access through what today is the web. And if that isn't working, if it's not geared to them, it becomes really, claustrophobic.
Absolutely. For some folks, the internet provides a lot of freedom. It provides a lot of connection that people may not have had otherwise. I mean, it sounds simple to say, but people of any ability want to be able to go online and date, or book a movie or book a flight, right? That's just part of life. The internet is part of life. And so we need to make sure that it's accessible for everyone.
Yeah, and I want to get to the point where you mentioned intergenerational, because to that same point, I'm fortunate that I can't consider myself of having a disability. We're talking about generations. I'm part of an older generation. And obviously younger persons have more ability in using tech. Persons like myself and others within my category, without having a disability, using tech is a challenge.
Yeah, so Tom, you talk about generations, and one of the things we really have to think about with accessible tech is everyone at some point is going to develop some form of disability. Now, I can't guarantee that, but we all age. Right? We might lose our hearing, we might lose some of our sight, we might lose some of our mobility. And the thing is disabilities can be permanent, such as the loss of sight. They can be temporary, such as a broken arm, or they could be situational. If I'm carrying a bag of groceries in one arm and let's say a child in the other, and I need to open the door, I have a situational disability in which I can't do that. And that's
Right.
when it helps to have the button on the wall that will open the door for me, right? So there's all these different things that we also need to think about in the physical world as well as online, because anyone at any point in time can develop that disability, whether you are, younger or you are older and farther along in your life.
I just want to change the page now and back to the Leon Foundation of Excellence, where you have programs that help youth heal intergenerational patterns of trauma. What are these patterns of trauma, just for our listeners?
Yeah, intergenerational patterns of trauma can look like many different things, but let's say that you have the grandfather who's an alcoholic and is abusive, right?
Okay.
And let's say that gets passed down to his son, which is now the youth that we're working with, their father. And let's say that the father says, I don't want to do the same thing to my kid. And so they're not as abusive, but maybe they become a workaholic and now they're neglectful and they're never around, right? So these patterns get passed down to lesser degrees or greater degrees, depending on how people respond. And we just perpetuate these intergenerational patterns of trauma. And what we work to do is to increase the emotional intelligence and self-awareness of our youth. So that way they're not perpetuating this pattern. They can recognize it. They have the tools to deal with it. They know how to stop it, and they know how to pick something else. So we're giving them those tools and that awareness so that way they can create a healthier version of life and still pass on patterns, but pass on patterns that are focused on peace, on healing, on nonviolent communication, right? Conflict resolution, those kinds of things.
Well, that's good because it helps people share and understand that others are in similar situations. Because many times we think it's just us, it's just me that's living the life we have, but that's really not the case. So what you do is outreaching across generations, literally.
Yeah, so we work a lot with high school students, college students. We encourage them to look at the patterns that they have between themselves and the generations that come before, develop the self-awareness and leadership skills. And we do that through in-person programs with schools. And we also have an online curriculum that anyone from anywhere can access. And
where can they find it? Where can our listeners find that?
Yeah, so it's going to be at leonfe.org. So that's LEONFE.org.
Repeat that, please.
Yeah, leonfe.org. So like Leon Foundations of Excellence.org. So LEONFE.org.
Very good. And how can our listeners find you everywhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. If you'd like to connect with me to learn more about accessibility or the work I do as a UX engineer, LinkedIn is going to be the best place to find me. So you can type in the generic LinkedIn URL /opportunitymade, and that's how you'll find me, or opportunitymade.com.
Very good. Well, thanks for being with us again, Katherine.
Thank you, Tom.
Again, for our listeners, it's Katherine Lewis. It's Katherine, and the last name Lewis. She's on LinkedIn and her site, which is www.opportunitymade.com. Opportunitymade.com. Café and Networking is brought to us by Focus Semi-Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information at focusmi.com. Talk to Tom, talk to the world. Thanks for listening. Till the next time here at Café and Networking Podcast.